Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a special guest on to talk about a topic that we've visited this topic in previous episodes, but I always love talking to organizations that are making tremendous change in the space of STEM. And she has a unique angle that she's doing it and just quite the amazing history. So welcome to the show, PhD Kimberly Clay. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Absolutely. So, Kimberly, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into starting the organization Play Like a Girl.
Well, I have a story past I shared a little bit offline. I'm from rural Mississippi and found my way out through education. I used to say it in repeat almost. I was dumb in math, in fact, if there's anything such as that. But I went to Xavier University of Louisiana in New Orleans in pursuit of a bachelor's degree in mass communication, nowhere related to STEM, science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, because if math was not my subject, neither were the others. But I realized quickly once I got to Xavier that Xavier was the number one institution, or the institution for producing the highest number of African Americans to medical school, as well as in the biomedical research area. And I was quickly introduced to the concept of higher education along the pursuit of a PhD. Really, at the time that I found Xavier and experienced Xavier as a student, the seed was being planted, but I wasn't serious about, going on with my studies. I was courting at the time my husband, who went on to pursue and ultimately receive his medical degree and become triple boarded in pediatric cardiac intensive care. So everyone who surrounded me at that point in my life and thereafter was in a STEM discipline. And although I went back to school and pursued the PhD in public health after a dual master's degree in public health and social work, even as a published researcher, funded through the National Institutes of Health, having worked at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, I still didn't consider myself a STEMness. I just, didn't see myself in one of those very, I think, distinct areas of STEM. But over the course of my career, I realized that everything I'd been doing really was in the STEM universe. And so when I founded Play Like a Girl as a doctoral student back in 2004, initially our attempt really was solely focused on helping girls and women of color really tap into disease prevention and control measures that they themselves could, direct in terms of how they live their lives, how they worked and played in everyday life. But over time, I realized that sport or play, active play, movement, physical activity was just a conduit, really, to many other ways that women could succeed in life. And I realized after a study was released by ESPNW and Ernst & Young in 2015, showing that 96% of women in the C-suite played sport, I realized, yeah, indeed, sport is, just the catalyst. And that we could leverage sport to really set girls up for lifelong success by really connecting movement, active play, sport, however you want to see it, and the skills that young women gain from sport participation, connecting that to an academic outcome, which for us became STEM. And that's how, over the course of where I went to college in 1994 to 2000 today, how we got to what we now know as Play Like a Girl.
Awesome. So, what was it like in those early days of, like I said, trying to figure that out? Because that's something that I hear common for a lot of entrepreneurs is in the early days, they started off with one idea, like this is the path we're going down. But as they started seeing, experiences or getting testimonies or just looking at things, they started to pivot. Was it a challenge for you to start to pivot as you started seeing the research and the information?
No, one, because I was a natural researcher, right? So very similarly, the process of evolution was a natural, organic experience for the organization as well. As I, shared in my history, kind of following my career path and that of my husband, because we as a household kind of moved and evolved as well. The organization had to, because as we were finding our footing and establishing a place for ourselves, we had to tap into the resources and community around us, which really, I honestly have to say, has been the thing that has been so uniquely important to and critical to our experience as an organization, and is really one of our core values now, and that is this notion of inclusivity and community. Understanding the power of women supporting women, girls supporting girls, and community rallying behind a call or a cause. And that really, every city we've touched across the Southeast and Southwest have really gotten behind the movement. And that's really what has helped to catapult us so far into our future. 15 years operating at the helm of an organization now for 10 years. And I've been fortunate enough to do it as a volunteer. All of my service, I left my academic career to do this work out of passion and commitment and a spirit of philanthropy. All of that, again, because I had such a strong community supporting. So tribe is so critical and has been just, I think, the very unique and important factor for us in not only our evolution, but also our sustainability.
Absolutely. So what do you think was some of the reasons why you attracted such a strong tribe to the cause of what you guys are doing?
That natural thing called woman. We are a powerful group of individuals. Sport and what it means to the experience of life for a woman, and life being, again, total and grand in the sense of life encapsulating the little girl, but also living itself out across the span of that woman's life, from that middle schooler to the elite athlete and everything in between. Recognizing that we are bound, those of us who are actively engaged in sport or have been actively engaged in sport, are united and bound by this passion of connectedness through team. And even in the case of individual sport, the collective nature of the athletes within those sports still make up the team within that sport. And so it has been that community and that experience that is uniquely woman, I think, that has really provided the cement, so to speak, or platform on which the organization stands, and those who really support and leverage their influence and power also stand as well, because it is what connects us.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you speak of the reach, I know you mentioned, several of the cities throughout the region. What cities or what regions is the organization active in?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, kind of have evolved to now really focusing more squarely here at home in Nashville, Tennessee. We still have collegiate chapters across the U.S. in Texas, some as far as Connecticut. Actually, our largest and most active chapters in Connecticut at Fairfield University, where we have over 350 college women who actively engage in sport and physical activity together, and then engage middle school girls in our programming. And then we also have a chapter in Ontario, Canada. But what we realized over the course of our growth and evolution is that we really needed to be intentional in our growth, intentional in our path forward. So over the course of the last 6 years, we've focused our attention solely on Nashville. We do still support those chapters. We partner all across the U.S. and beyond. We have partnerships with major brands, other companies. We recently, before all of the upheaval with COVID, had just returned from Florida with the Pro Bowl, the NFL Pro Bowl, and specifically a partnership that we've leveraged with Reigning Champs Experiences, which now produces the NFL flag football program. So we were there specifically training and educating and engaging girls around STEM and sport as a part of the national championships, which were played at the NFL Pro Bowl. So we continue that work. We partner with teams right here in the city of Nashville. We have partnerships out in Silicon Valley, even with the 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers. Our leading partner this year happens to also be the National Football League's Players Association. So as you can see, while yes, Nashville is home, we don't see our work as limited to Nashville, but we really focus on Nashville because of the need here in our city to grow diversity in the pipeline to STEM careers, and doing that really by being intentional in our partnerships with Metro Nashville Public Schools, which is so critical.
Awesome. So where can people find you online or follow you on social media, see the updates of what's going on with the organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So everywhere online, our social tag is I Play Like a Girl. We wanted to take our name, which is Play Like a Girl, and really make it a declarative statement of power and strength. And something to be proud of, to play like a girl. You know, it used to be an old schoolyard taunt, boys to other boys saying, oh, you play like a girl. Well, guess what we do? We play like girls. So IPlayLikeAGirl.org is our website URL. And then on social media, be it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you can also find us at I Play Like a Girl on those platforms as well.
Awesome. You know, I laugh when you mentioned that old saying, because at the high school that I went to, when like some of the guys would make that comment of, hey, you know, you play basketball like a girl or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
they would think it was an insult. But I always laugh because the high school I went to, the girls basketball team were like reigning champs.
Yeah.
And it's like the guys that never won a championship. So I'm like, that's not really it's actually a compliment.
Yes. And even today, you know, some of the women in the WNBA can outplay some of the guys, you know, earning their checks. If only we had equity and equality in pay within the sports community and cross industry. You know, we could all proudly say we play like girls, but unfortunately, you know, girls don't get a fair shake in this country still, in sport in particular. And that's also hugely a part of our focus is, you know, really how do we empower women with the confidence to show up, outperform, even against the odds, and ultimately take charge and be the one making decisions. Because that same study that I talked about earlier also revealed that for women who end up in the C-suite, they are often influenced in their hiring decisions regarding or by the principles, you know, that guide them from their experiences in sport. They also hire other women in sport because they recognize that the skills and the confidence that women gain from sport really play well in the work environment as well. So yes, great story. That's probably the story of many of us, but it's so important to recognize that those women who are, many of them, performing at par or above par to their male counterparts still are not seen as equals.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. And before we wrap up, one last question that I like to ask all the guests that come on is, when you think about your experience with, leading this organization, what is two pieces of advice that you would give someone that said, hey, I want to start an organization around a mission that I'm passionate about? What advice would you give them about actually developing and leading that organization?
Yeah. Well, for me personally, I'm a person of faith. So being called to the work is so critical and important because honestly, that trumps every other piece of advice. Because if you're not called to the work, endurance can wane pretty quickly. Especially in the nonprofit sector, we face a lot of challenges, money being one of them. I shared, I've done this work without a salary or benefits for 10 years of my life. I've exhausted and spent out every pot of savings and retirement that I have. So it was necessary that I be called, because otherwise it just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense for my husband to sacrifice and to work as hard and vigilant as he has to provide for our family in the absence of my bringing in income. It is what is also necessary when you have supporters, but you also lose supporters because you have board members who come and go. People have term limits. People want to invest their talent and treasure in other things they believe in as well. So you don't have people forever, although they are committed to the tribe. So there are some losses even that you experience along the way. So being able to persevere, to endure, and to be resilient, I truly believe you must be called to the work because this work, I believe, is not for the faint of heart. And certainly for me, it's been what has been my sticking power, staying as long as I have, doing what I do under the circumstances, has really been about feeling called and led to do this really against sometimes my will. I've wanted to quit many, many times, trust me. But when you feel called and led to do what you have been called to do, you can't abort that before it is time for you to move on. So that would be my one singular, I think, most important piece of advice.
Awesome. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on to talk about the organization Play Like a Girl and the impact that you guys are having. Please continue the great work, and thank you so much for being on the Business Talk Library show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for investing in girls and women in the way that you're doing by giving us a platform to share our stories. I appreciate it.
And that concludes another episode of the Business Talk Library. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can connect with us on any social media platform, Instagram at Business Talk Library, LinkedIn. You can follow the Business Talk Library hashtag. You can also connect with us on Facebook and YouTube, searching for Business Talk Library. If there's any topics that you would like addressed or any questions you have about your business or your career path that you would like for us to answer on the show, feel free to shoot us a note on any of those platforms and we will try our best to get to them. Remember, keep it simple.